Hey everyone, Wolf Lord Rho here. Today we're discussing the reunion between Fulgrim and Perturabo. Spoiler warning to begin, as the events we're discussing today are from the Horus Heresy novel Angel Exterminatus by author Graham McNeill. As always, I really recommend you read the stories for yourself first without spoilers, as that's the best way to enjoy the lore for yourself. But with that said, let's just jump straight in. Now, there's a lot of similarities across the Primarchs, and there's a lot of differences, with the Emperor creating them for specific roles and purposes. I guess it's not much of a surprise. And there are surely two Primarchs who couldn't be any more different than Fulgrim and Perturabo. In the moments you stand back and look at the two divided sides of the Primarchs, those loyal to the Emperor and those sided with Horus, you really do see why Horus was privately lamenting those upon his side, wishing he had the loyal brothers who opposed him, such as Guilliman and Rogel. It's not because those with the War Master were any less special, any less formidable at what they were designed to do, but he just seemed to end up with the Primarchs who had no loyalty to each other. That Horus was largely the sole unifying trait amongst them. It got a little better when the largely liked Magnus finally joined them, but by then the corruption was well and truly embedded. The Primarchs fighting for themselves more than ever. And that's why the reunion between Perturabo and Fulgrim is so intriguing. Because it's not only a moment between two vastly different Primarchs, but it also comes at a time the assembled traitors of Horus are at their peak. In the wake of the Istvan massacre, and a time when they have the Imperium reeling. It takes place on a world of Hydra Caudatus, a world of Perturabo's choosing after Fulgrim had requested a meeting. And before they even meet, it's clear the two have only drifted even further apart. With Perturabo's forces fresh from fighting the Imperial Fist garrison, the Emperor's Children fleet arrives in orbit above. Perturabo is of course already aware of it when informed Fulgrim's arrived by his legionaries. But while he is still expecting the hours of preparation and planning for the Emperor's Children's perfect grand planetfall, he is completely taken aback when his men mean no, Fulgrim's here, as in here. 300 3rd Legion craft have already descended, at least believed to be 3rd Legion, as their Legion symbols are mostly covered in a new unknown symbol, and it quickly becomes apparent how far the Emperor's Children have fallen. Somewhere around the hardpan of the Emperor's Children drop site, 3 kilometers beyond the valley mouth, a riot had collided with a triumphal parade. That could be the only possible explanation for the gaudy cavalcade of noise, colour and spectacle that processed into the valley. 10,000 mortals provided a vanguard for the 3rd Legion, a frantic host of screaming men and women, swirling banners and discordant noise blasting from instruments that bore no relation to anything crafted by a sane musician. Blooms of coloured and perfumed smoke wafted ahead of the host, fanned by glassy-eyed Ogryns whose contoured body armour had been hammered to their flesh by barbed spikes. Foryx watched with a mixture of anger and horror at the sight of the approaching rabble, a decadent celebration of every perversity and degradation known to man. The senior officers of the Iron Warriors had assembled at the towering barbican of the Southern Contravallation to greet the Phoenician and his Lord Commanders. And this was how they were met. with carnivala and lunacy. The fall of the Emperor's children is truly something remarkable, and I don't think it's something recognised and discussed enough. We're so used to it now, we've most likely just become a bit numb to it. But this was the Emperor's children, the famed Third Legion, the sole bearers of the Emperor's Aquila, the symbol of what an Astartes should aspire to be. And look at it here, bearing almost no resemblance to a legion at all. And remember, this isn't the 40k era we're talking about here. This isn't even after Fulgrim's ascension to demonhood. This is merely in the midst of the heresy, not a great deal of time after Istvan. You can feel the shock of the Iron Warriors, who had assembled to greet their fellow legion, their fellow proud legion. And instead they're met by a circus of insanity, something beyond comprehension to be accompanying a legion, beyond comprehension at all. That line of Forex watching with a mix of anger and horror is the perfect description, no pun intended there, because it's not truly a horror and anger at how the Third Legion is greeting them, some form of lack of respect. It's a horror at what's become of them. It's an anger that it's been allowed to happen, that a once proud legion has been reduced to this. The description of the approaching Emperor's Children spectacle continues on and on. The closer they get, the more and more abominations are seen, the more the horrific truth of what's become of them apparent. And even Perturabo, the very symbol of granite stoicism, who has watched this whole thing unravel before him without even a reaction, can't help but let slip, "What has happened to you, my brother?" And that one comment betrays so much. No, Perturabo and Fulgrim were never close. No, they would most likely never have chosen to spend time together. But despite it all, they were still Primarchs. They were still brothers. And even the ice-cold Perturabo can't completely contain his shock, his dismay entirely. It's not the Legion that Perturabo mourns here. It's his brother, knowing now, before even seeing him, that something truly tragic has transpired. His brother, who previously so desired perfection, so impeccably performed his role, has allowed his legion to become this. If there was ever a time the first crack of regret appeared in Perturabo's soul, it surely would have been this moment here. Because there's no way he could ever have anticipated this sight, this tragedy in the proud Emperor's children before him. And for him to have let out that comment to himself, his dismay, the Lord of Iron, then you know it must have cut deep. In a way, it makes me love Perturabo that little bit more. Every time I read a story of him within the Heresy series, there's always that one thing that just surprises you, that makes you see the humanity within him, how he truly should never have betrayed the Emperor. If only he could have seen the Emperor one more time. Eventually, the parade reaches Perturabo and the Iron Warriors, and Perturabo's legion mirrors the Primarch's own shock when laying eyes on their true legion kin. Atop a platform of warped and fused living beings, carried on the shoulders of Terminators, Fulgrim emerges from the host, looking as perfect as he ever was. But the whole spectacle around him belies the truth of the change that's transpired inside. Now Perturabo here gives nothing away, formally greeting his brother as neutral as ever, offering him a gift of 2 Imperial Fist prisoners, Fulgrim in turn returning a gift offering of an ornate cloak, which Perturabo immediately places around his shoulders. So it's a very unique moment in time here. The Emperor's children barely resembling a legion at all anymore. Fulgrim well and truly on the road to demonic ascension, and yet Perturabo still honours the traditions of old. A formal meeting and gift for his fellow Primarch. Okay, Imperial Fist prisoners weren't exactly tradition, but that's what I mean when I say it's truly a moment in time. A very unique moment on the path and history of these 2 proud legions. One that would never be seen again. And it's after the greeting and the Primarch's retreat within Perturabo's headquarters that the Lord of Iron lets his true thoughts be known. What is the meaning of this? Demanded Perturabo, once they had returned to the heart of the Cavia Ferrum. Meaning, said Fulgrim, examining the portrait on the crumbling stone walls with the detached fascination of a connoisseur of the fine arts. Whoever said there had to be meaning in anything? You know of what I speak, said Perturabo. That host beyond my walls. Don't you approve of the company I keep, said Fulgrim, his tone playful. That host of degenerates is beneath you, said Perturabo, gesturing to the violations of flesh, armour and decency wrought upon his brother's companions. And your legionaries, what has become of them? For all the differences of old between the brothers, here you get a glimpse of what I was saying before, that despite it all, there was still that unspoken bond within. That host of degenerates is beneath you. Beneath you. That's a clear sign of the respect that Perturabo held Fulgrim in, is trying to hold him in still. He knows and feels that Fulgrim should be above this kind of depravity, that Perturabo still sees the Fulgrim of old, the Fulgrim that he was meant to be. But it's too late for that. Fulgrim has travelled too far down that road. Oh my brother, you have no idea of the things I know now, said Fulgrim with a bark of laughter that expressed pain as much as amusement. Much I will share with you in time, and much is there that will bring us closer than ever. Closer, said Perturabo. I wasn't aware we were close at all. Perhaps not, admitted Fulgrim, with a hurt pout. And that saddens me. Do we not share a gene father? Did we not both spring from the loins of the same heroic god? No, we didn't. We were created in a laboratory, said Perturabo. And he is no god. Always so literal, sighed Fulgrim, moving from the paintings to the architectural drawings laid out on the wide plotting table. But the point remains. We are brothers. We should be close, especially now when all we have known is falling apart, ready to be rebuilt in a glorious new image. It is my fondest hope that the shared hardships of this joint venture will bring us the intimate bond I share with Guilliman. You aren't close to Guilliman either, pointed out Perturabo. No, said Fulgrim, looking up as though puzzled by his own words. Ah, perhaps not yet, but I will finish what Lorgar's zealots have begun. Not now, not ever, said Perturabo. Guilliman will never forgive us for what we have done. The truth is, Fulgrim here has one intention and one intention alone, to use Perturabo to aid his own elevation to demonhood. And you can see and feel that with every comment he makes. It just rings with insincerity. He can barely hide it. I mean, it makes for a funny conversation with Perturabo's counters, but it's an example of how Fulgrim in truth no longer cares for the world around him. That the embrace of Slaanesh has irrevocably stolen the Phoenician. Something, as we've seen, will only get worse once his ascension is completed, with Lorgar having to go and drag Fulgrim out of the Eye of Terror. And it's an unbelievable change, really. A Primarch who cared so greatly about his own record and achievements in comparison to his brothers, so much so he'd conquer a world with a single squad just to prove he could. And here we see what he's on the path to become. We see what was lost with the Phoenician. Something that even moved Perturabo within, to despair at what his brother had become. And a little sign of respect in the way Perturabo talks about Guilliman there. Not now, not ever. Knowing full well Guilliman would never forgive them for the heresy. He's right, of course, but it's interesting to see how adamant Perturabo is there in that mention of Guilliman. You do get the sense of a begrudging respect there still. Again, for me, it's a real important snapshot in time on Fulgrim's journey. No longer the man he was, yet not the demon Primarch he would go on to be. And in being confronted by the steel-proud Iron Warriors, you get the real sense of just what a tragedy the Third Legion's fall is. Just what a loss it wasn't just to the Imperium, but to the War Master's forces as well. Just think how better they would have been had they had the true Fulgrim and Emperor's children by their side. If they had a committed, dedicated Phoenician in his prime at the Siege of Terror, instead of this mockery he had become. All for me summed up beautifully by that one slip in Perturabo's defense, the one betray of emotion escaping. What has happened to you, my brother? But as always everyone, what do you think? Could Fulgrim have been saved even at this point? Was there a way that he could truly have been brought back from the path he was on? Or by this point, given the transformation that had already befallen his once proud legion, was it at this point too late? Is the reaction of Perturabo and the Iron Warriors the perfect example of just how far the Emperor's children had fallen? Was it also, in a strange way, a true mark of respect for the legion that they were? How differently do you think the heresy and the Siege of Terror could have been if they had had an uncorrupted Emperor's children and Fulgrim within the War Master's forces? As always everyone, leave your thoughts in the comments below. Huge thank you to all my subscribers, your support truly means a lot to me, it really does. If you're new, please consider subscribing to help the channel grow. And if you enjoyed this particular vid, then why not drop a like on it too. But with that said, I am off, and I'll see you all again real soon.